Derek Bieri's story begins in a way that feels almost ordinary at first glance, yet it carries the seeds of something far larger than anyone around him could have predicted. Long before he became associated with roaring engines, barn finds, and viral automotive rescues, he was simply a kid surrounded by grease-stained tools, worn-out machinery, and the quiet influence of a family that valued hands-on knowledge over formal instruction. His early environment was not polished or glamorous. It was practical, shaped by garages that smelled of oil, metal, and years of accumulated mechanical history. While other children played conventional games, Derek gravitated toward dismantling and reassembling anything he could get his hands on. His father and grandfather played a crucial role in shaping this curiosity, not by shielding him from failure, but by allowing him to confront it directly. They encouraged experimentation, even when it meant broken parts and failed repairs, because they understood that mastery comes from repetition, not avoidance. In this environment, failure was not discouraged. It was expected. Every mistake became a lesson, every malfunction a puzzle waiting to be solved. Without realizing it, Derek was building a foundation that would later define his entire career, a fearless approach to broken things, and an instinct to bring them back to life no matter how far gone they appeared. From corporate structure to grease-stained freedom in the garage, before the world knew him as the face behind Vice Grip Garage, Derek Bieri lived a life that looked entirely different on the surface. He worked in a corporate environment, wearing suits, attending meetings, and following the structured rhythm of office life. On paper, it was stability. In reality, it felt increasingly disconnected from who he was. The repetition of corporate routines created a sense of quiet dissatisfaction that built over time. Not in dramatic moments, but in subtle, persistent awareness that something essential was missing. That missing piece was hands-on creation, the kind that involved real materials, real problems, and real outcomes. Eventually, the tension between obligation and passion reached a point where change became unavoidable. Derek made a decisive shift, stepping away from his office career and returning to the world of mechanical work that had defined his earlier life. The transition was not glamorous or calculated for public attention. It was personal, almost private in its intent. He returned to the garage not as a hobbyist seeking distraction, but as someone reclaiming a fundamental part of his identity. The garage became his new workplace, his creative space, and eventually the foundation of something much larger than he initially intended. In that shift, the seeds of Vice Grip Garage were planted, though at the time, it was nothing more than a man reconnecting with the work that made him feel alive, the birth of a simple idea that became a digital phenomenon. Vice Grip Garage did not begin with production teams, branding strategies, or viral ambitions. It began with simplicity, an old car, a basic recording device, and a willingness to share the process of bringing something broken back to life. Derek's earliest videos were unpolished, recorded in a straightforward manner without cinematic framing or elaborate editing. The focus was entirely on the work itself, diagnosing problems, improvising solutions, and attempting to revive vehicles that most people would have considered beyond saving. What made these early recordings compelling was not technical perfection, but authenticity. Derek spoke directly, often with humor and a relaxed tone that made complex mechanical processes feel accessible, even to viewers with no automotive background. As the videos circulated, audiences began to grow organically. People were not only watching for car restoration insights, but for Derek's personality, which combined practical knowledge with a grounded, unpretentious communication style. The channel gradually evolved into a community space where viewers shared enthusiasm for forgotten vehicles and mechanical resurrection stories. Without deliberate marketing or corporate backing, Vice Grip Garage transformed into a recognizable name in automotive content. What started as a personal outlet became a platform that connected thousands, and eventually millions, of people who found value in watching forgotten machines get another chance at life. Learning by doing, and the philosophy behind mechanical revival. At the core of Derek Bieri's work is a philosophy that separates him from many traditional automotive creators. He does not rely on rigid formulas, or strictly academic approaches to mechanics. Instead, he builds understanding through direct interaction with the machines themselves. This learning by doing method was shaped early in life, where curiosity and persistence were more valuable than formal instruction. Derek developed a deep appreciation for the why behind mechanical systems, not just the how. He studied engines, electrical systems, and mechanical structures, with the mindset of someone trying to understand behavior rather than memorize instructions. This approach allows him to adapt in real time when dealing with unpredictable breakdowns, especially in older vehicles that no longer have readily available documentation. His restoration work often involves improvisation, creative problem-solving, and a willingness to accept imperfect solutions when necessary. Rather than treating mechanical failure as an endpoint, he sees it as a challenge that can be approached from multiple angles. This mindset resonates strongly with his audience, who appreciate the transparency of his process. Mistakes are not hidden, they are shown, explained, and sometimes even celebrated as part of the learning experience. In this way, his work becomes more than entertainment. It becomes a demonstration of resilience, adaptability, and the value of persistence in solving real-world problems. Early influences and the foundation of mechanical curiosity. Derek's fascination with mechanics did not appear suddenly. It was cultivated over years of exposure to practical environments where tools and machinery were part of daily life. His family played a significant role in shaping this interest, particularly through hands-on mentorship rather than structured teaching. Instead of receiving step-by-step instructions, he was encouraged to explore, disassemble, and reassemble objects to understand how they functioned. This early freedom allowed him to develop intuition around mechanical systems that cannot be easily taught through books alone. Alongside practical experience, he also developed a strong habit of reading technical material, including engineering texts and mechanical guides. This combination of practical experimentation and theoretical curiosity created a balanced understanding that would later become a defining feature of his work. Unlike many who specialize strictly in either theory or practice, Derek bridged both worlds, allowing him to approach problems with both insight and adaptability. This dual foundation helped him build confidence in tackling increasingly complex restoration projects. It also reinforced a mindset that values persistence over perfection, where the goal is not flawless execution, but functional revival. Over time, this philosophy became deeply embedded in his identity as a mechanic and content creator, shaping the tone and direction of everything he would later produce. The growth of a community built on broken cars and honest work. As Vice Grip Garage expanded, it evolved into more than just a channel focused on automotive restoration. It became a shared space for enthusiasts who appreciated honesty, humor, and practical knowledge. Viewers were drawn not only to the vehicles being restored but also to the way Derek communicated the process. He had a unique ability to break down complex mechanical issues into understandable concepts without oversimplifying the reality of the work involved. This transparency created trust between creator and audience, something that is often missing in highly polished digital content. The community that formed around the channel included people from diverse backgrounds, professional mechanics, hobbyists, and complete beginners, all united by a shared appreciation for mechanical revival stories. Comment sections became places of discussion, advice, and encouragement, further strengthening the sense of connection. Unlike many online spaces driven by competition or performance, this community was grounded in shared curiosity and respect for hands-on craftsmanship. Derek's willingness to show failures alongside successes reinforced this culture, reminding viewers that progress often involves setbacks. Over time, Vice Grip Garage became less about individual videos and more about a collective appreciation for persistence, creativity, and the satisfaction of bringing something forgotten back to life. Drag racing, risk, and the expansion of mechanical passion. Derek's involvement in drag racing introduced a new dimension to his mechanical journey, blending restoration work with high-performance experimentation. Events like the Midwest Drag Gatherings exposed him to an entirely different level of automotive intensity, where speed, engineering precision, and risk intersected. One of the defining moments in this phase of his journey came during a race event experience that reshaped his understanding of performance driving. The adrenaline, unpredictability, and mechanical demands of drag racing sparked a deeper interest in pushing vehicles beyond conventional restoration. Collaborations with other builders and racers further expanded his perspective, introducing him to advanced modifications, engine tuning, and performance optimization. Projects like custom-built racing vehicles demonstrated his ability to transition from restoration to competitive engineering. These experiences were not without challenges, as high-speed environments introduced greater mechanical stress and potential failure points. However, they also provided valuable insight into vehicle behavior under extreme conditions. This phase of his journey highlighted his versatility, not just as someone who restores forgotten machines, but as someone capable of understanding and modifying them for entirely different purposes. It reinforced the idea that mechanical passion can evolve across disciplines, from preservation to performance. The role of family in a life built around engines and projects. Behind Derek's public persona and mechanical achievements lies a strong family foundation that plays a central role in his journey. His wife Jessica and their children are not distant observers of his work. They are active participants in the environment that surrounds Vice Grip Garage. The garage itself functions not only as a workspace but as a family-oriented setting where learning, collaboration, and shared effort take place. His children are exposed to mechanical concepts from an early age, learning through observation and participation rather than formal instruction. This creates a continuity of knowledge that extends beyond professional projects into everyday life. Jessica's involvement is equally important, as she contributes to various aspects of restoration and supports the broader vision of their shared work. Together, they create a dynamic where mechanical projects become family experiences rather than isolated tasks. This integration of personal and professional life reinforces the authenticity of Derek's journey, showing that his passion is not separate from his home life, but deeply intertwined with it. It also reflects a broader philosophy of generational learning, where skills, values, and curiosity are passed down naturally through shared experience rather than structured education alone. A philosophy of preservation, storytelling, and mechanical history. One of the most distinctive aspects of Derek Bieri's work is his emphasis on preserving the identity of each vehicle he encounters. Rather than stripping cars down completely and rebuilding them into modernized versions, he often chooses to maintain their original character. This approach reflects a respect for history and storytelling, where each vehicle is treated as a physical record of its past. Rust, wear, and imperfections are not always seen as flaws to be eliminated, but as evidence of a journey that deserves recognition. This philosophy transforms mechanical restoration into something closer to historical preservation. Every project becomes an opportunity to tell a story, not just about the vehicle itself, but about the people who owned it, used it, and eventually abandoned it. By reviving these machines, Derek is also reviving fragments of personal and cultural history. This perspective resonates strongly with audiences who appreciate the emotional dimension of restoration work. It shifts the focus from perfection to meaning, encouraging viewers to see value in objects that might otherwise be dismissed as useless. In this way, his work bridges the gap between mechanics and storytelling, turning garages into spaces where history is not only preserved, but actively reinterpreted through hands-on engagement. Challenges, failures, and the reality behind every successful build. Despite the polished final results often seen in completed restoration or racing projects, Derek's journey is filled with challenges that are openly acknowledged rather than hidden. Mechanical failure is a constant presence in his work, especially when dealing with vehicles that have been abandoned for years or decades. Engines refuse to start, parts break unexpectedly, and systems behave unpredictably due to age and neglect. These moments of failure are not edited out or minimized. Instead, they are included as part of the process. This transparency is a defining feature of Vice Grip Garage and contributes significantly to its authenticity. It reflects the reality that mechanical work is rarely linear and often requires repeated attempts before success is achieved. Each failure becomes an opportunity for problem-solving, forcing creative thinking and adaptation. Rather than presenting a simplified version of restoration, Derek shows the full spectrum of outcomes, including frustration and setbacks. This approach not only educates viewers but also normalizes the idea that failure is an essential part of learning. It reinforces the understanding that success in mechanical work, as in many aspects of life, is built on persistence rather than immediate results. Legacy building through passion, community, and mechanical revival. As Vice Grip Garage continues to grow, Derek's work increasingly reflects a focus on long-term impact rather than short-term success. His projects are no longer just about individual vehicles, but about building a legacy rooted in passion, craftsmanship, and community engagement. Through consistent documentation of restoration journeys, he has created a body of work that preserves mechanical knowledge in an accessible format. This has educational value for viewers who learn not only how to fix cars, but how to approach problem-solving in general. His influence extends beyond entertainment into inspiration, encouraging people to pursue hands-on skills and embrace practical creativity. The community that has formed around his work continues to expand, reinforcing the idea that shared interests can create meaningful connections across different backgrounds. This growing network of enthusiasts contributes to a broader cultural appreciation for restoration and mechanical preservation. Derek's legacy is not defined solely by the number of vehicles he restores or the popularity of his channel, but by the mindset he promotes. That broken things are not the end of a story, but the beginning of another possibility. A continuing journey, driven by curiosity and mechanical purpose. Derek Bieri's story remains ongoing, shaped by continuous experimentation, exploration, and engagement with mechanical systems in various forms. Whether through restoration projects, racing experiences, or community interactions, his journey reflects a consistent commitment to understanding how things work and how they can be brought back from failure. There is no fixed endpoint to his work, as each project leads naturally into the next, guided by curiosity rather than obligation. This ongoing process keeps his work dynamic and unpredictable, allowing for constant learning and adaptation. His ability to remain grounded despite growing recognition speaks to the authenticity of his motivations, which are rooted in passion rather than external validation. As technology evolves and automotive culture continues to change, his approach remains anchored in hands-on experience and mechanical intuition. This ensures that his work stays relevant, not because it follows trends, but because it reflects enduring principles of problem-solving and craftsmanship. His journey demonstrates that long-term fulfillment is often found not in reaching a final destination, but in continuously engaging with the process itself. The cultural ripple effect of Vice Grip Garage in modern automotive media. As Vice Grip Garage continued to grow, its influence began to stretch far beyond individual viewers or isolated restoration enthusiasts. It started shaping a broader cultural shift in how automotive content was perceived online. In a digital landscape often dominated by polished builds, professional sponsorships, and highly edited transformations, Derek Bieri's approach stood out as intentionally raw and unfiltered. This difference became a defining feature of his impact. Audiences began to recognize that automotive storytelling did not need to rely on perfection to be compelling. Instead, authenticity, humor, and visible problem-solving could carry equal or even greater emotional weight. His content subtly challenged the expectation that expertise must always appear flawless. By showing hesitation, improvisation, and even confusion at times, he normalized the reality of mechanical work as an evolving process rather than a linear progression. This perspective influenced not only casual viewers, but also other creators in the automotive space, many of whom began incorporating more transparency into their own content. Over time, Vice Grip Garage contributed to a wider appreciation for real-world mechanics, where imperfections are not edited out but embraced as part of the story. This cultural ripple effect extended into forums, meetups, and online communities, where discussions about vehicles increasingly reflected Derek's philosophy of practical learning and honest documentation. The human side of mechanical storytelling and emotional connection. What separates Derek Bieri from many others in the automotive world is not just his technical skill, but his ability to infuse mechanical work with human emotion. Each vehicle he encounters is treated not as an isolated machine, but as something with a past, a presence, and an identity shaped by time. This approach transforms standard restoration content into something more narrative-driven. Viewers are not only watching engines being repaired, they are witnessing stories being uncovered and continued. A rusted car becomes a symbol of forgotten history, while its revival represents continuity and respect for what once was. Derek often communicates in a conversational, almost storytelling tone that makes viewers feel as though they are part of the process, rather than passive observers. This emotional accessibility allows audiences with no mechanical background to still engage deeply with the content. The connection is not built on technical knowledge, but on shared appreciation for effort, struggle, and transformation. Over time, this storytelling approach has created a sense of familiarity between creator and audience, where each new project feels like another chapter in an ongoing journey, rather than a standalone video. This emotional continuity is one of the reasons his content maintains long-term engagement and loyalty. The evolution of risk in restoration and real-world mechanical challenges. As Derek's projects became more ambitious, the level of risk involved in his work naturally increased. Early restorations often involved relatively straightforward mechanical issues, but over time, he began tackling vehicles that had been untouched for decades or subjected to extreme environmental wear. These conditions introduce unpredictable complications that cannot always be solved through standard procedures. Fuel systems deteriorate, electrical wiring becomes unreliable, and structural components weaken beyond initial expectations. Each project becomes a negotiation between intent and reality, where planned outcomes often shift based on what is discovered during inspection. This unpredictability adds an element of real-world tension to his work, as success is never guaranteed from the outset. In many cases, vehicles require multiple stages of repair before they can even be safely started, let alone driven. Despite these challenges, Derek continues to approach each project with curiosity rather than hesitation. His willingness to engage with uncertainty reflects a broader philosophy that values discovery over control. Instead of avoiding difficult situations, he embraces them as opportunities to learn and adapt. This approach not only enhances the authenticity of his content, but also reinforces the idea that meaningful results often come from engaging directly with complexity rather than avoiding it. The quiet impact of a life built on broken things and rebuilt dreams. At its core, Derek Bieri's story is not simply about cars, racing, or online content creation. It is about the transformation of perspective, seeing value in what others discard, and recognizing potential in what appears beyond repair. His work challenges conventional ideas of success by showing that meaningful impact can come from deeply practical, hands-on efforts rather than abstract achievements. Through countless restoration projects, he has demonstrated that broken systems, whether mechanical or metaphorical, can often be revived with patience, creativity, and persistence. The emotional resonance of his journey lies in its simplicity, a person dedicating his life to fixing things that others have given up on. This philosophy extends beyond mechanics into broader life lessons about resilience and determination. The impact of his work is reflected not only in the vehicles he restores, but in the mindset he inspires in others. People watching his process are reminded that failure is not final, and that effort can reshape outcomes in unexpected ways. In this sense, his legacy is quiet but powerful, built not on spectacle, but on consistent acts of restoration that speak to a deeper understanding of value, effort, and renewal.